Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Tuesday night live stream for Week 9 of the 2025 fantasy football season. For over the next hour plus, we're talking all things fantasy football related. So if you guys do have a question, whether it is via the live chat or in order to claim priority, whether it is via the super chat, make sure you include your scoring format. The more context you provide within your questions, the easier it'll be for me to go ahead and answer them. Again, we're going to be talking about all things, whether it is a waiver wire discussion. Again, many of us hitting the waiver wire later tonight. Hopefully players such as Tyrone Tracy are available to potentially be picked up in your case. Of course, we'll give you value for the remainder of the season. Other potential options at wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, potential streamers, all that. If you have any questions, be sure to ask. Additionally, we'll of course talk about some potential trade targets as we proceed for the remainder of the season. Many of players that have incredibly strength-worthy schedules, I would say, for the remainder of the season here, in which I'm certainly going to continue to kind of push in the direction of, hey, maybe we should probably look towards trading for these players. And then outside of that, if you have any questions in regards to starter sits going into this upcoming Thursday, again, we'll have the Miami Dolphins taking on the Baltimore Ravens. As we typically know, you're going to start your studs, Flowers, Jackson, assuming Lamar plays, Derrick Henry. On the other side, Waddle, Achane. That's pretty much going to be it. Mark Andrews could theoretically be a play because there's an advantageous aspect to the matchup, but ultimately I would assume that there are probably better potential options out there, hopefully, in your case. Okay, before we get into answering any of these questions, a quick reminder, earlier today, I did end up posting my top 37 running back rankings for a half PPR scoring format, so if you guys haven't checked that out, that is live on the channel. If you guys haven't yet already, do me a favor, click the like button on that video, and then go ahead and swing back around here so we can continue to answer questions. Outside of that, again, if you guys want my Sunday morning rankings for the remainder of the season, of course, want to make plays in regards to adding to your fantasy experience every single day, whether it is the NBA, the NFL. Of course, right now the Dodgers are playing, and I would like to be watching that game, but we have priorities. We've got to make sure that our lineups are ready to go and the waiver wires are being addressed appropriately. Therefore, again, if you guys want to go ahead and follow that path, get those rankings, be sure to use code Andrew today via Betr and follow those instructions to get those rankings every single Sunday. Thank you very much. Okay, let's begin by answering some questions in regards to the super chats that were just immediately sent in at the beginning of the live stream. So let's go ahead and let's address those first and foremost. We begin with Avram. What's up, my man? Hope you're doing well. Thank you very much again, Avram. Says, I just lost Scatterby to an injury. Who should I pick up for rest of the season in a half PPR? Chase Brown, Tony Pollard, Woody Marks, Pacheco, or Tracy? I think in terms of rest of season value, I'll lean probably in the direction of, well, that's an interesting one. My immediate thought is Chase Brown because their upcoming schedule is so advantageous because there's so many potential shootouts that are going to occur between Cincinnati and the upcoming games in which they'll be playing. Just looking at their upcoming schedule for rest of season based on weeks 9 through 17, the Cincinnati Bengals have the fourth easiest schedule based on running back rushing statistics allowed. Henceforth, I mean, just even talking about the remainder of the fantasy football regular season, weeks 9 through 14 to make a playoff push, they have the eighth easiest schedule as it proceeds with Chicago, then a bye week, unfortunately, but then they have Pittsburgh, New England, Baltimore, and Buffalo. Again, a lot of potential shootouts in the meantime. So I think Chase Brown would probably be at the top of that conversation. And then my number 2 option, most likely positions to Tracy. Number 3 would be Woody Marks. Number 4 would be Pacheco. Number 5 would be Pollard. If anything changes in terms of upcoming kind of, let's say, for example, injuries, anything like that. We know Pacheco is currently week to week with the knee injury that he sustained last night. Woody Marks versus Nick Chubb, that could always develop into a no longer a split and just Marks outright dominating the backfield, which could elevate him above the likes of Chase Brown and Tracy. But for now, I like Brown number 1, Tracy 2, Marks 3, Pacheco 4, Pollard 5. In regards to PPR rest of season, Etienne, Vidal, Harvey, Marks, or Vidal. I'm assuming you repeated that and there's not a fourth option, but in the event in which we're just talking about these 4 running backs in specific, Travis Etienne is by far and away the most valuable. If you guys have the opportunity for trading to get Travis Etienne on roster today, it would probably do you a pretty solid service for the remainder of the season, especially when you take into account Vidal will disappear once Omarion Hampton returns. Harvey is still going to be second fiddle to J.K. Dobbins, and Marks, again, is still in a little bit of a committee situation there. Etienne has the backfield to himself and has the 5th easiest strength of schedule for the remainder of the fantasy football regular season, weeks 9 through 14. And to begin the fantasy playoffs, takes on the Jets, which, as we all know, anybody can run on the Jets in 2025. Thank you, Avram. Oni, what's up, my man? The start 2 between Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker, Spears, and Harvey. Beautiful. Again, like I mentioned before, and I'll continue to reiterate, earlier today we did end up posting the top 37 running back rankings for week 9 in a half PPR scoring format. Do not forget the rankings are subject to change. So even though you do see the rankings as such, going into this week, we're still uncertain as to the status of someone like Isaiah Pacheco and what his relation to Kareem Hunt would be going into this week against Buffalo. We're not 100% certain as to the potential of Bam Knight and or Trey Benson, who is going to be the starter there, depending on if Trey Benson is in fact to return this week. That is still to be determined. But outside of that, majority of this is going to stay relatively stable. If I was to change something by Sunday morning, again, it wouldn't be a drastic change unless an injury and or some other supplement information is to be revealed in the coming days that could influence the decision making to adjust the overall structure of the projections going into this upcoming Sunday. So based on the players that you mentioned, Oni, Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker, Spears, and Harvey, genuinely I would play both of the Seattle Seahawks running backs. And I think it's an advantage to be able to have both on roster right now, because you're not only able to kind of encapsulate the entire backfield value. In case Charbonnet continues to steal touchdowns or Kenneth Walker breaks out a big run, you'll have the entire backfield confined within your starting lineup, which I think gives you the advantage within the upcoming matchup, just because you don't have to worry about, am I starting the right Seattle Seahawk? So in this case, play both play both Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker for this week. Thank you. Death to Ming sends in a question. Thank you very much, Death to Ming. Very generous of you. Says in a 12-team half PPR league, Team 1 is Drake May, JT, Kyron, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Waddle, McBride, Ladd, ETN, Hunter, and Gadsden. Sheesh, brother. That is a stacked roster. Team number, really your biggest weakness you don't have a weakness. You just have a bunch of really good players, and that's just it. I'm not even going to point anything out. Team 2, Drake May, JT, Henry, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Trey McBride, Waddle, and ETN. Okay. Team 1 is current team. Team 2 is if I make the trade. Thoughts? So you'd be moving Kyron Williams. And let's see, who else is missing? So you would get back Henry while sending Kyron Williams. Who else do you get to keep? You'd be sending Ladd McConkey, and you'd be getting Garrett Wilson a return. And then you would keep ETN. You'd also be sending Travis Hunter and Gadsden. So in this event, you would trade a 4 for 2, technically speaking, to which you'd be moving Kyron, Ladd, Travis Hunter, and Oronde Gadsden in order to get back Derrick Henry, Garrett Wilson, which in my mind, unless you're playing in a league where you can start, 4 wide receivers, 3 flex, ultimately, these would be your RB1 and 2. Amon-Ra St. Brown alongside of Waddle. Wilson will be your 1 through 3. ETM will, position itself in the flex. If it is a double flex format, here's my only thought process, okay? I do believe this roster as a whole, if we have no injuries and we have no bye weeks, this is the roster I would prefer to have. But of course, we can't guarantee no injuries, and we will have upcoming bye weeks. So I think it's just a matter of purely, what does your upcoming schedule look like? How many bipocalypses are you going to experience? And if you can afford to be able to still navigate through those upcoming weeks with the following Team 2 roster, then you make the trade. In the event in which you're like, well, Andrew, I'm about to get murdered by a couple of these bye weeks, we're going to be in a little bit of trouble, then you would rather keep the depth, because the untold potential of injuries could end up derailing your season if you're giving up a 4 for 2. So for right now, depending on your record, depending on the upcoming weeks, let's say you're 7-1. At that point, I'm making the trade. I'm just preparing for the fantasy playoffs. Otherwise, in the event in which you're like, all right, well, I'm actually still fighting for a playoff position, which when I look at your team, I think to myself, it's probably unlikely. You probably have like at least 5-3, 6-2. But if you are fighting for a playoff position still to this moment, then I would rather keep the depth. That's my thought process on the matter. Thank you. Josie, what's up? Says in a full PPR, trade my Ibuka for Barkley. My running backs I have are Gibbs, Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet, Mason. Wide receivers are Puka Nacua, T. Higgins, BTJ, Keenan Allen. Start 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers. Yeah, so I would be happy making this trade in the event in which you can guarantee to get Tank Bigsby off of the waiver wire. I would probably hold out on this trade until you can confirm that you can pick Bigsby up. I understand that there is not too much of a concern as to the point of Barkley returning from injury come week 10 after the bye, but I just want to ensure that I have the insurance policy on roster in the form of Bigsby in case Barkley is going to miss some significant time or any time at all, to which I can be able to encapsulate the value there. So in the event in which You could bring in Barkley. You can also secure Tank Bigsby, and you have the roster space to accommodate for that. I'm more than happily making that trade because I think your RB2 certainly needs help because ultimately Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker, Mason, at very best, are high-end RB3s, low-end RB2s. Outside of, Charbonnet scoring consistent touchdowns, really, I think it's necessary to go out and make a play for another RB. And in the case of Barkley, especially if we look long-term value-wise, he's got the third easiest strength of schedule when it comes to the fantasy playoffs, weeks 15, 16, 17, as they take on the Raiders, Commanders, and Buffalo Bills. In terms of fantasy points per game allowed via rushing statistics throughout those 3 games, it's an average of 15.9 per week. Again, that's just isolated on rushing stats. Expect for a lot of upside there. I'd make that trade. Fantasy Forecast sends in a question. It says, trade Judkins for his Warren PPR. I want to confirm that when you say Warren, you mean Jalen and not Tyler. That's my only question that I would like to know. Because when I look at the rest of season potential of Jalen Warren versus Judkins, both of these players, in terms of rest of season strength of schedule, have top 5, rest of seasons from weeks 9 through 17. The Cleveland Browns currently maintain as the easiest strength of schedule rest of the way. So for those of you who have Judkins on roster, or maybe don't even have Judkins, but you want to potentially get, you have an extra roster spot, throw in a potential waiver wire pickup on Dylan Sampson. I think there's some value to be had there in case that AC, shoulder joint sprain is going to be something that plagues Judkins. It could lead to Dylan Sampson getting some run in the coming weeks here. And when they come back from bye, we got New York Jets, Baltimore, Las Vegas, Tennessee, Chicago, a lot of advantageous matchups ahead. So if we're talking about Jalen Warren versus Judkins, in a PPR, I would probably lean in the direction of Jalen Warren purely because their matchups in terms of rest of the season is so incredibly close, but the advantage leans towards Warren because of the reception upside that he's consistently being involved within, and ultimately the offense that he's associated with has a higher likelihood of scoring in comparison to the Cleveland Browns, who Stefanski is on his one-way trip to potentially losing this job because he doesn't want to change the quarterback purely out of stubbornness. But in regards to the potential, yes, I will take Jalen Warren there. If it's Tyler Warren, that's a completely different conversation to which I would have to reevaluate everything. Thank you. All right, continuing on. We had a question from Adam Amar. Adam, what's up, my man? Says, I've got Drake May, Baker Mayfield, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Dobbins, Harvey, Puka. Okay. We've got Stephon Diggs, Olave, DJ Moore, Hawkinson. Half PPR moves you'd make. Also, Pitts or Hawkinson rest of season. Well, as of this moment, Pitts seems like he is the more, streamlined usage player between the two. And considering Drake London's dealing with a bit of an injury, Hawkinson would probably be the secondary option in comparison to Pitts. Both are past their bye weeks, which actually is Minnesota past their, I believe they're past their bye. So Pitts is my preferred either way. In regards to the potential of making moves, again, if you have the opportunity to go out and trade for a Travis Etienne, I would be very much so willing to do so at the moment because, again, you can buy low on his potential, having produced 3 dud performances as of late. Like I mentioned earlier today within the running back rankings video, those 3 performances against Seattle, the LA Rams, and Kansas City are 3 of the 6th toughest matchups that you could possibly take on. There's a reason why he didn't perform up to his normal standard from weeks 1 through 4, where he was the number 9 overall running back in terms of fantasy points per game, half PPR. So if you can go after Travis Etienne, I think it's a great potential plan of action. I think Jalen Warren is another good player that has an incredibly advantageous schedule and is coming off of a bit of a dud performance, of a dip. I think the potential of still being able to buy low on New England Patriots running backs, very much so applicable and can find a lot of success in doing so, especially when you take into account the New England Patriots running backs have the second easiest strength of schedule going forward. I mean, just looking at their upcoming games, like this week should be a cakewalk in terms of running the football because Atlanta's gotten torched on the ground each of the last 2 games. But then they get the Jets, they get the Cincinnati Bengals, they get the Giants, they get Buffalo, they get Baltimore, they get the Jets again. These are all teams that can't stop the run effectively. So a lot of opportunity there in the form of buying low within a Ramondre as well, a Travion Henderson as well. Outside of those options, I think everything else would be a little bit too expensive to buy right now per se, unless you're trying to sell your top tier options. You're just trying to sell gold for gold and just improve running back while getting rid of an elite wide receiver. Now, if we talk about like strength of schedule at wide receiver, I think that's also a topic of conversation that we really haven't gone over as of the last couple live streams, but I'm more than happy to develop upon it. If we look at the most advantageous strength of schedule rest of the way for wide receiver, weeks 9 through 17, it belongs to the Vikings, Eagles, Browns, Chargers, Lions. So obviously, players such as Jefferson, Addison, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Lad McConkey, Keenan Allen, Amon-Ra St. Brown, all implicated for solid performances henceforth. The Steelers in that conversation as well. So, why not a DK Metcalf? The Giants at the top tier of the conversation. Why not Wando Robinson? The Bears at the top tier of that conversation could still buy low on Rome Odunze. The Bengals at the top of that conversation. Miami, Jacksonville. Again, a lot of teams out there that you can go ahead and potentially invest upon that are at the top tier of this conversation across the board. In the event in which, again, there's an open availability for players that are associated within those offenses. Thank you. Okay, continuing on, we had Johnny Kilroy. Johnny, what's up, my man? Says, how do I deal with the stupidity of fantasy, like losing to someone with 4 players on bye, and I only had 1 in constant injuries? I've seen it on multiple occasions where, look, here's the thing about fantasy, right? Even though there is strategy, ultimately, you are at the mercy of the unpredictability. And that's it. There are some things that we anticipate for Darnell Mooney to catch the ball more than once on Sunday because Drake London is out. One of the passes leads to a defensive pass interference. The other one is a ball thrown 10 yards over his head because Kirk Cousins doesn't know what he's doing. The next ball ends up being a dropped pass. Like, sometimes like opportunities there and it comes knocking and then it ends up being an absolute disaster. This last week we thought, oh man, Cortland Sutton against the Cowboys should be incredible, right? Ends up dropping a touchdown, clear as day in the end zone, and ends up killing my my play on Betr when I needed him to get 5 receptions, but he wanted to drop the touchdown. Thank you very much. Again, there's just so much that's just out of our hands. We just have to be, we try our best, and that's it. But yeah. Definitely a tough one there, Johnny. Rock Out says, trade offer my Achane for Adams and Chase Brown. In the event in which you are in desperate need of wide receiver depth because you've lost a lot of talent, maybe you've lost a lot of players due to injury, you've lost Tyreek, Neighbors, Mike Evans, something of that exchange, I would be okay making a trade like this because I think the value in which you get in return with 2 starters in comparison to 1 contributing factor in Achane, I think the 2 starters here certainly will help you in the long run as it proceeds. Thank you. Alex sends in a question. Thank you, Alex. Says, trade Dowdle for Pitts. My tight end is on a bye. I'm 6-2. I wouldn't really feel the most comfortable going down that path. Well, okay, so here's my thought process on the matter. Let me just check something out real quick. So when I look at the week 9 regular season schedule, I see 4 teams on bye: Philadelphia, Tampa Bay, New York Jets, and Cleveland. So under the assumption, let's say you had Dallas Goedert as your team, as your tight end, because maybe you have Fannin, but I doubt it. Let's say you have Dallas Goedert and you wanted to trade Dowdle in order to pick up Pitts. The only reason I would ever trade Dowdle in order to get Pitts, who's only going to be a 1-week play for the remainder of the year, maybe I guess he could provide depth, but after your tight end comes back, is healthy after the bye, ready to go, I don't see this being a worthwhile investment. I'd rather hit the waiver wire and pick up somebody. But let's say Dowdle is like your 6th best running back. Sure, at that point, you can ship him off and not even, you don't even break a sweat. But otherwise, no, I don't like the idea of this unless you're like, Andrew, actually, it's not Dallas Goedert. My tight end is Cade Otton. Okay, yeah, let's make the move. Because at that point, you're going to probably utilize Pitts for rest of season. You know what I mean? But for right now, until I get further context, I would probably say no. H. Jockish sends in a question. Says, full PPR. I have $42 of fab left. Dump it all on Tracy. I would. Genuinely, yes, I would. Weak at running back or better pivot to Hunt for a cheaper price. Yeah, I would probably go for both. In the event in which you cannot get Tracy, you would still put in a potential bid for Kareem Hunt, because we learned last season in the absence of Pacheco, Kareem Hunt is incredibly valuable, and even last night he demonstrated once again, even with limited touches, he's the goal line back, and that is just what it is. So I would go after Tracy. I would utilize all 42 fab, but in the event in which you can't get him, I would also put in an additional, maybe let's say $8 to $9 on Hunt in case I can get maybe 2-3 weeks out of him. to help out my weak running back current situation as it stands. Thank you. Getting back to Alex's question, Alex, in the event in which you're playing in a league where you have someone that you can drop, I would go pick up Jawan Johnson for this week. Tyler Shuck's taking over the starting quarterback position for the Saints. I think that's not a bad matchup in the case in which you don't make a trade of this caliber and you go for a waiver wire pickup. Rockout sends in a question. Says wide receivers are JSN, Ridley, Mooney, Tez, or maybe even Loveland. Loveland against Cincinnati's crazy good matchup. Anyway, Rockout says wide receivers are JSN, Ridley, Mooney, Taz Johnson, and Jaden Higgins, Evans, and Bourne. Okay, so what is the actual question here? So is trade offer? Okay, got it. So you are desperate for wide receiver. I would absolutely make this trade. Considering this is what the rest of your wide receivers look like, you have to make this trade. Just purely out of responsibility for your team's well-being for the rest of the way, taking Adams and Chase Brown is necessary. Thank you. All right, Drewski15 sends in a question. What's up, my man? Says, what's up, bro? Looking to pick up Tracy with my number one waiver. Beautiful. My running backs are Kamara, Chase Brown, Woody, Harvey, and Charbonnet. Beautiful. Who do I drop to pick up Tracy? Or hold what I have? No. We've got to make a move here. Tracy effectively has more value than everyone there except for Chase Brown probably. So in the event in which you were to drop one, this is where it becomes incredibly tricky. Because I still do believe that Harvey has the least amount of value out of the entire group, despite the fact that he technically has scored the most points amongst all of them in this most recent game. So here's my immediate thought process. I would try to trade a 2-for-1 here today, in which I'm sending 2 of these running backs in order to get 1 in return. And I would look towards a team that is incredibly RB needy. And additionally, maybe even a team that has their primary running back on a bye week. Maybe you can go in and find somebody that's already in the drought in terms of their win-loss record, but their running back is a Quinshon Judkins, and he's out on bye. Or a Breece Hall, a Bucky Irving. Additionally, maybe even Saquon's out there. But in the event in which you can go send a 2-for-1, be able to get a running back in return, go after ETN, go after Jaylen Warren, please and thank you. In the event in which you can bring back a running back 2-for-1 exchange, and then also utilize your number one waiver priority in order to pick up Tracy, I think it improves your team there because then you don't have to just drop Harvey outright because I truly do believe in terms of rest of season value, every single one of these other running backs has more value than him henceforth. Thank you. Bob sends in a question, says, hi, Andrew. In a full PPR, who would you drop for Tyrone based on rest of season value? Kincaid, Pitts, Jordan Mason, Monangai, Spears, Dowdle. Also drop a second player for Zonovan Knight. No, okay, so here's the thing about Knight. He is an incredible play this week. But in terms of rest of season value, there's not as much kind of substance there as I would anticipate Trey Benson to return. And there is a possibility in which Trey Benson returns this week, in fact, considering they also play on Monday night. And the reason why they may have dropped or cut Michael Carter to put him back on the practice squad is because of Trey Benson returning. So Knight is very much so a contingent player. I still want to make sure I get Tyrone Tracy. In order to accomplish this, I think the best way in which we go about it is to probably drop one of these 2 tight ends because Dowdle has too much value going forward. Jordan Mason, again, effectively a handcuff, but someone that I'm not willing to drop just yet. I want to give it another week. Monangai's got great value. Spears got great value. Between Kincaid and Pitts, I look at the potential of what Kincaid provides. Unless he scores touchdowns, we're in a little bit of trouble. That's really just what it is. It's a little bit tricky because I know this most recent game, I don't think it speaks to the value which he provides, but it was an incredibly advantageous matchup, yet he still didn't play very much, which scares me. So do I want to keep all these options? Ultimately, it becomes a question of like, are we ever going to start Monangai? That's my thoughts. And I would say, unless you're going to start him this week, but if you pick up Tracy, I'd play Tracy and I'd play Dowdle as my 1-2 combo. I would maybe play Monangai as my flex, but even then, it's not a necessity in a full PPR. So it becomes a real question of, are we ever going to play Monangai? To which I would probably say no, because I would rather have Spears in case he gets traded or Pollard gets traded. I'd rather have Jordan Mason because I know that there's always the possibility of an older Aaron Jones re-aggravating an injury. Or, of course, their upcoming matchups leaning more towards a run-heavy approach with the quarterback swap. So I think Monangai or Kincaid are the drops. Monangai first, probably because you don't need to have this many slew of running backs on roster if they're not going to be available as like primary utilized players in your starting lineup. Luis sends in a question. Says, drop Wan'Dale Robinson for Josh Downs. No, I'd rather have Wan'Dale Robinson. Josh Downs coming off of back-to-back games of a receiving touchdown is certainly something to keep an eye on, and obviously has kind of presented value in that kind of red zone range as of late. But ultimately, with Wan'Dale Robinson and their upcoming strength of schedule being at what it's at, considering they just lost Cam Scatterbo, I think this team, going from about 28 RB opportunities per game, that number is probably going to go closer to 20 per game, to which I think Wan'Dale Robinson's overall usage share based on passing attempts should be projected at a higher clip for Dart going forward, which effectively should make Wan'Dale a far more viable option in my mind going forward. Mo Money says, for waivers, should I prioritize running back this week, Judkins handcuff, or running back for rest of season, or go for a wide receiver like Tucker or Franklin? Team is below. Let's see what you had here, Mo Money. Says, I'm 5-3. PPR, double wide receiver, double running back, double flex format. We've got Drake May, Judkins, Alvin Kamara, RJ Harvey, Algier, Travion Henderson, Brashard Smith. Okay, so Brashard Smith should be dropped. That should be first and foremost. Continuing on. JSN, Amon-Ra, Rome, BTJ Worthy. Okay, so in the event in which you could theoretically drop Brashard in order to make a potential pickup here at, via waiver wire, if Tyrone Tracy is available, here's your potential pickup. In the event in which that's not the case, when I look at your wide receiver depth, neither Troy Franklin or Tucker Kraft would ever play over JSN, Amon-Ra, Rome, or BTJ rest of season. I would never suggest it. So I would be willing to go ahead and pick up Dylan Sampson in order to ensure my policy of Judkins for remainder of the season, and I would do that by dropping Brashard Smith. Thank you. Daniel sends in a question. What's up, Daniel? Says, I got offered Bowers and Vidal for Ibuka. I'm not interested already. Kyron, Genty, Woody, Kamara. Yep, not interested. I think they're just trying to scam you outright. Unless there's new relevant information regarding the status of Omarion Hampton rest of the season that I'm not privy to at the moment, that I haven't seen, and the report somehow snuck past me, I don't believe this is worth it, because Vidal is a fleeting commodity in which once Hampton does return, I mean, the expectation is, yes, Hampton probably doesn't return until week 13 after their bye. But still, when I look at the rest of season potential value here, because you don't have Hampton on roster, you're basically renting Vidal and you're getting an injured Bowers. I'd rather have Ibuka in terms of rest of season potential, because I do trust these running backs enough to get the job done. And I'm okay keeping these tight ends and just making sure that my wide receivers are blindly going to be Ibuka and Puka rest of season. So yeah, I don't make this trade. Thank you. Donray Morales, what's up, Donray? Long time no see. I hope you're doing well, sir. Says, one of each, start two. Okay. Pat or Flack? When you say Pat, do you mean Pat Mahomes? I don't know what other Pat there would be. So in this case, I'd rather play Pat Mahomes than Flacco. And then Brashard Smith or Myers. I mean, Jacoby Myers is 100% a coin toss. I don't even know if he's going to play, because they may not want him to get injured if they plan on shipping him via a trade prior to the deadline. So in the event in which we are starting one of those two, not even sure that Myers even plays. So Brashard Smith, I guess technically, in the event in which Myers doesn't play, the decision is made for you outright there. But the second one's a to-be-determined scenario. If Myers ends up suiting up, I'd probably play him, because I don't really want to play Brashard Smith until I have further information regarding Pacheco. Thank you. G. Medina says, hey, Andrew. I need to pick up a quarterback due to my Dak Prescott bye week for week 10. Do I drop Quentin Johnston or Romeo Doubs? My top quarterbacks on waivers are Darnold, Purdy, Tua, Dart, and Trevor Lawrence. Okay, let me look at the week 10 schedule, and I'll let you know exactly the direction I'm going in. So when I look at the upcoming schedule for week 10 of the season and the available running backs you have, okay, seeing it as to how it's currently constructed, this is the way that I'm going to go about this. In regards to who I'm dropping between Quentin Johnston and Romeo Doubs, I genuinely would end up dropping Romeo Doubs. I still have hope that Quentin Johnston can squeak it out as we proceed, and with Christian Watson getting back into the mix soon enough, Jaden Reed will be back. I think there will be a little bit too many mouths to feed within that offense, especially with Jordan Love not really wanting to funnel the ball in the direction of one singular player at an incredibly consistent rate weeks, just kind of stacking him. I think the only player right now that is getting like outright number one favor is Tucker Kraft, and viably so. But do I want to drop him for Johnston outright? I mean, at this point, I don't love the idea, but I still would. I still have hope that the Chargers offense can get him more involved. In regards to which of these quarterbacks to pick up for week 10, let me see who they're playing. Okay, so Purdy would take on the Rams. Not too keen on that. Tua would take on the Buffalo Bills. I'm not keen on that either. Jacksonville has Houston. I hate that. Dart would be playing up against the Chicago Bears. I'm okay with it. Darnold would have... Where's Darnold here? Darnold has Arizona, which last time I had 2 tutties. Out of the group, I legitimately play Jackson Dart as or Brock Purdy. That's the one of the two. It's one of those two. I'd probably lean towards Dart just because Purdy has re-injury factor and Dart has a lot more rushing upside, especially with Scatterboo out. A lot more scrambling, a lot more passing. Thank you. Oni sends in a question. Says trade idea for ETN. I have Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker, Spears, Harvey, Bucky, Davis, Judkins, Odunze, T-Mac, Shakir, Stafford, Flacco available to trade. No luck moving Sharps and K9 so far. Maybe hold and see what happens after the deadline. I think that's not a bad plan of action, but if I was going to look to potentially trade for ETN, I would assume you probably aren't going to be able to pull a 2-for-1 per se. I mean, you theoretically could try sending like a running back with Shakir under the assumption they need wide receiver help. Otherwise, I think it more or less needs to be like a 2-for-1 or 2-for-2 experience. Maybe you send Judkins in order to bring back ETN. I think that is a little bit more applicable in this case because I don't think anybody wants to trade for Sharps or Kenneth Walker unless they're getting both aspects on roster, and they'd have to be 2-for-2ing or maybe even 3-for-3ing at that point. So maybe Judkins for ETN could be the way. Otherwise, maybe it ends up being like if they have a little bit of a need for wide receiver, Shakir could end up being the move along, or maybe even T-Mac, one of those two alongside of a running back in order to get ETN and an additional piece alongside of it. If that 2-for-2 potential isn't an availability or ETN for Judkins straight up is not an availability at that point, then I would just wait. I'd be patient. I don't want to force anything and overpay. TanFam sends in a question. Says, I'm 6-2 in a 12-man league. I got offered Gadsden and Troy Franklin for my Metcalf. My receivers are Jamar Chase, Metcalf, Garrett Wilson, Pittman Jr., BTJ, and my yeah, I would make the trade immediately. I would immediately make the trade. I think Gadsden, rest of season, probably top 6 tight ends at very least, if not top 5 in that range. I would say 6 is probably safe, but certainly so much further ahead than Waller and Theo Johnson that I would drop Theo Johnson. I'd make this trade. You have Jamar, you have Garrett Wilson, you have Pittman, you have BTJ. I'm not worried about your wide receiver depth. You're in a full PPR, and with the value that he is going to present to you in that tight end position, gives you stability there. He doesn't have a bye until week 12. I'd make that move. Thank you. Robert Mitchell, what's up, my man? Says, I've got Gadsden and Laporta. Would you keep 2 tight ends? Which one would you drop for rest of the season? I genuinely would drop Laporta. I am so high on Gadsden rest of season. It just, yeah. In comparison to the 2, yes, Laporta technically has the potential of, getting back to his 2023 days, but ultimately, touchdowns are the name of the game. And when we're talking about both of these incredibly high-powered offenses, the way that both of them are being utilized, I just prefer how Gadsden is kind of looking as of late and where he's trending. I don't mind the idea of keeping both tight ends, though, because we know that, of course, Gadsden has an upcoming bye, and you may get into a situation in which you may even be able to, flex Laporta depending on the matchup. Looking at the upcoming schedule for the Lions, though, let's see. Yeah, I mean, they have the Vikings, the Commanders, the Eagles, the Giants, a lot of shootouts, the Packers, the Cowboys, a lot of shootouts up ahead. So there could be a lot of value there. Says, which one would you drop for the rest of the season? I want to pick up Travis Hunter because Ibuka is on a bye week this week. I think picking up Travis Hunter is the correct move, though. And I have Rice as one of my other slots. Yeah, so as of right now, I dropped Laporta in order to accomplish this, genuinely. Says, I have Rice and I don't know if I trust Debo. Yeah, I think picking up Travis Hunter is definitely a smart plan of action. I think as we have kind of progressed over the course of the season, especially over the course of the most recent 2 weeks here, we have seen Travis Hunter hit all-time highs in terms of offensive snap share, 78% and 87%. Coming off of the bye, if we're going to be in a position in which he gets an even greater exposure because BTJ is trending in the wrong direction, obviously dealing with a bit of an injury himself in this most recent game of week 7 prior to the bye week, Travis Hunter could end up being just the number one receiving option of that offense and be a little bit more valuable to you because of, he could even be flexed even after the bye week here. So yeah, I'm okay making that move. Obviously dropping Laporta hurts because again, he's an incredible player. And there's so much value to be had there. And I would probably, before I even make the drop, see if there's a possibility in which I can make a 2-for-1 trade. But ultimately, if it's not possible, you can't ship him off, people don't want him, then I make the drop. Gob sends in a question. Full PPR, trade Kittle and Tyler Warren for which number 2 RB? Which number 2 RB? If I was going to technically trade Kittle or Warren, again, I'll continue to reiterate. If I can get back Travis Etienne, please and thank you, that's what I want. In the event in which that is not a capability, I would look towards the potential of a Jalen Warren. I would look towards the potential of a Quinshon Judkins. Those are the players that have incredibly advantageous schedules ahead and that I want on roster and that I think that are RB2s and are comparable value points to which in a full PPR, trading them and getting a 1-for-1 exchange there, I think is very much so. It's fair, I think. Thank you. Appreciate it, my man. Okay. Hope you guys are doing well. Again, we have been here live streaming on the channel for the last 39, almost 40 minutes. I hope you guys are doing well. Earlier today, like I mentioned before, I did post my top 37 running back rankings for week 9. So if you guys haven't checked out that video, it is live on the channel. Again, obviously, rankings are subject to change, and by the time we get the Sunday morning's live stream for this week, do not forget that this upcoming Sunday morning, if I'm not mistaken, I believe there is a London game. Let's see here. Yeah, the upcoming schedule for week 9. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, goodness. Yeah, actually, no, I don't think there is. Oh, thank goodness. Sheesh. Okay, we got lucky. I thought there was a Sunday morning early London game. Maybe that's week 10. Let me check. Yeah, that's week 10. Okay, so week 10, we get back to the international games. So we are lucky this week. This upcoming Sunday morning, 7 to 10 a.m. Do not forget, I'll be live streaming here on the channel. So at this point, of course, trending in the right direction. But if there is any changes, of course, that will be applied there on the live stream on Sunday morning. Appreciate it. Outside of that, again, if you guys want my all-encompassing rankings at every single position, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, kicker, defense, and flex half in full PPR, you can check out Betr. Again, like I've mentioned before, all you got to be is eligible via the map to the right side of the screen, signing up using code Andrew, making that first time deposit minimum of 10, and making that first time play within a real cash play. Picking more or less on 2-player statistics will get you those rankings. You'll also get a free $10 when signing up today, and of course, the free play of the day. Thank you very much. Okay, let's continue on. I saw a couple more questions come through here. I believe we continue with Xavier, who says, Sutton or Kyron rest of season? I think it depends on just roster construction ultimately. If you're going to ask me, Andrew, who do you think scores more? I think Sutton in a full PPR would outscore Kyron Williams right now. In a full PPR, I think it's just a one-sided kind of instant, like I'm going in that direction. Half PPR, I could be convinced otherwise, and I could certainly have the conversation. But for right now, if we're talking full PPR Xavier, I'd rather have Cortland Sutton. But again, very much so, roster construction dependent. If you're asking me, Andrew, would you rather have Kyron in your flex or Sutton in your flex rest of the way? I genuinely would rather have Sutton because I think the way that Rams offense is kind of trending, their upcoming schedule ahead, and the way that they are not running the ball down in the red zone scares the crap out of me. It says also, why aren't we at 100K? That's a great question. Listen, if every single one of you who are in this live chat right now, so 140 of you in here, if every single one of you told a friend to subscribe, we would get one step closer. Actually, we get probably 140 steps closer, right? But that's just a matter. Again, it's a slow process. We're slowly but surely getting there. I would assume the primary reason we're not at 100K is because I don't post anything on social media. If I had, a couple social accounts here and there, it'd probably end up moving a little bit quicker. But I like my YouTube game. I'm a simple man. Just YouTube videos and live streams. That's what I prefer. Thanks. H13 Production says, in a 12-team full PPR double flex format, 6-2, quarterback is Herbert, running backs are Saquon, Kyron Montgomery, Rashad White, Kyle Monangai, Rashee Rice, Quentin Johnston, Coleman, Downs, Evans, McBride, Pitts, hard sell Quentin Johnston, gonna drop Monangai for Tank. Any moves? I think the Tank Bigsby pickup is definitely vital. As of right now with Quentin Johnston, I wouldn't theoretically sell him because you would sell him at his floor, and I don't think you're going to get anything back in exchange for him. You could certainly try, but I don't think you'll get anything in exchange. I think your best plan of action right now is just try to pick apart the waiver wire and just play Josh Downs in the meanwhile. Or you can go ahead and go after teams that have their primary wide receivers on bye. Let's say, for example, try to go after Garrett Wilson, see if that team is desperate for a running back because you do have depth enough to where you can make a move in exchange to try to make a play at one of those wide receivers. I think if you can go and potentially buy low on players such as, again, just throwing out names. If Wan'Dale Robinson's available, I genuinely would try to go after him. I think it would be an easier, potential play. I think even going after Darius Slayton is an easy potential play for the remainder of season because that's available on the waiver wire. Other potential options you can theoretically buy low on. Looking at the board, I think Deebo Samuel is somebody that I would like to, primarily because I know that he needs to be associated with Jaden Daniels to be a higher value point, but I'm still convinced that once Jaden Daniels is healthy, you're 6-2, and you're back, in the back end of the schedule ahead. There's going to be a lot of potential shootouts there, especially when the Washington Commanders have the second easiest strength of schedule at wide receiver from weeks 15 through 17, the fantasy playoffs. They take on the Giants, the Eagles, then the Dallas Cowboys. I feel like it's just like a way which we can go about it. Thank you. Ed sends in a question. Ed, thank you very much. I appreciate it, my man. It says, Kyren and Sutton. For a reliable RB, who do you think I should aim for? I'm so confused. Wow, it's crazy how Xavier and Ed had the same question in regards to this. Kyren and Sutton. For a reliable RB, who do you think I should aim for? Derrick Henry or Cook? I think both are arguably reliable. I just feel like James Cook has more threat of his quarterback stealing rushing touchdowns, and that's always been the case. So I always prefer Derrick Henry in this circumstance. But here's my issue. Derrick Henry in the offense is 100% contingent on the health of Lamar Jackson. And we don't know if the health of Lamar Jackson can sustain. So in the event in which we are just trying to hitch our wagon to the better offense that is going to be able to keep their quarterback healthy and subsequently feed their running back more fantasy points, I think the stability and my preference revolves around James Cook at the moment. Also, I have McBride and Gadsden, PPR non-super flex. Nobody wants Gad right now. If nobody wants Gad right now, that's perfectly fine. Play McBride at tight end, play Gad in the flex, and let it roll. So I'm actually just still curious about what this is about, the Kyren and Sutton question. But if that's what you have on roster, then yeah, I'm just curious. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, Ed. Let's go ahead and let's travel to the live chat. Let's see what you guys have to say. Yeah, I need more RB depth. Yeah, I mean, at that point, if you need more RB depth, then the decision is made for you, Xavier. Not going to lie, it's kind of crazy that people spend $5 for Super Chat. I mean, listen, it's just purely a matter of supporting the channel. It's not really like a designation of like, oh, the question is worth that much. It's more of like someone, like the audience is designating, or you guys, the supporters of this channel, are designating, hey, we appreciate what you do, Andrew. Thank you very much. While I'm showing my appreciation, I have a question. That's the way that I see it. In a full PPR 10-team league, I traded George Pickens and Chase Brown for CeeDee Lamb and Ramondre Stevenson. Okay, interesting trade. I have Henderson. Should I feel odd without Chase? I have Christian McCaffrey, Rice, K9, and Benson. Honestly, I don't mind the trade, because I do like the upcoming schedule for the New England Patriots, and you pretty much have the entire backfield kind of locked down. Obviously, I think there is an argument to be made in which I think it's an even trade ultimately, but there could be a discussion in terms of you may have overpaid here. But in the case in which CeeDee Lamb gets back to his 100-plus yards as per usual and keeps doing what he's doing as of late in a PPR and continues to claim that like top 3 wide receiver rest of season positioning, and Ramondre can set you up for the fantasy playoffs. I mean, I think Ramondre will probably be better than K9. I think he'll probably be better than Benson, most likely, because Benson's schedule's a disaster. And Hendo, if Hendo doesn't overtake him, I think it's worthwhile in the long run. Joseph, what's up? Says in a half PPR, 4-point per passing touchdown, I have Bo Nix. Should I go with Murray or Brissett, Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, or Rodgers, or JJ? Okay, so if we're going for the potential of another quarterback in the event in which Bo Nix when he has his upcoming bye week. I think it depends on when the Broncos have their bye as to which way I'm going to pivot. Let me look at the upcoming schedule here. I know the Broncos playing week 10. Is it a week 11 bye for the Broncos? It is not. Let's see, week 12. The week 12 bye. Okay, so what do you have available here? Murray, Brissett, which is not going to be the case. You're not going to need either. So let's see. Where does Murray play? They play against the Jaguars that week. You got Purdy taking on. Where the heck is Purdy in this week? 49ers that week. I don't even know who they play. Are they on bye that week? It's not week 14, is it? No, it's not. Oh, they play the Panthers. That's not bad. Then you have Trevor Lawrence versus the Cardinals. Not too interested. JJ, no. I mean, at that point, it would probably just be Purdy. Purdy probably be the play in that week in which Bo Nix is missing. Also in the flex, Tedero McMillan. Unless you're just saying, Andrew, I don't want to play Bo Nix this week, which is a completely different conversation. To which, if we're just talking about this week in specific, I haven't done my quarterback research yet, but if I was going to lean you in the direction of going for one of these players, I'd probably position it to go. I'd like to play Purdy as well there, assuming he's healthy. Again, Kyle Shanahan said it's not a long shot. In the event in which we cannot play him, I would probably position myself to play Kyler Murray there, if potentially possible. Kyler would be one, Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, then Rodgers, then J.J. McCarthy. So pretty much left to right, we can run it. You should probably pick up Murray because Purdy's kind of a toss-up as to what happens. Also flex Tedero, McMillan, McLaurin, Spears, Pollard, Charbonnet, and Kamara. I don't want to play Kamara. I don't want to play Spears or Pollard. I'm probably going to end up playing Tedero and McMillan in this circumstance. Against Green Bay, it's not the greatest. So the Washington matchup here could be solid, but I don't love that either. But then again, it's a little bit more stable. These two would probably be ending up as my top two options here. Thank you. How much fab would you spend on Tracy? It depends how much you have and what the next most desperate team in your league has to spend. Like, let's say, for example, you start with 100 fab and you have 70 left, okay, theoretically speaking here. In the event in which the next most desperate team that just lost Scattaboo has like 54 left, I would assume they're going to rip 54, to which at that point, I'm going to rip 55. But if you do believe that there are other suitors for the services of Tracy, I would rip all 100. I would rip all 70. I genuinely would. I would empty your clip in order to acquire him, assuming, of course, you're going to be utilizing him and starting him weekly for the remainder of the season. And even if you're not starting him weekly for the remainder of the season, the possibility of picking him up and then shipping him via a trade even before he plays against the 49ers on Sunday, I think is very much so a viable approach as well to be able to get back fab not only, but also another piece, theoretically speaking. All right, Spencer James, what's up, my man? Says in a 12-team PPR, 5-3, we've got Dak Herbert, JT Bucky, Bam, Benson, RJ, Brashard Smith, Isaiah Davis. We have CeeDee Lamb, Rashee Rice, Quentin Johnson, Kayshon Boutte, Tyler Warren, Aubrey. Thoughts on my team and any moves to make? I want to trade Boutte and Quentin Johnson and one quarterback. But I have buys still. Yeah, look, unless you're going to get back enough depth to be able to justify those kind of moves, at a 5-3 record, you are in a really solid position. And in a 12-team league, if let's say 6 teams make the playoffs, you just need 3 more wins to pretty much secure that. I think 8 wins will get you the job done to be a top 6 team in your league, assuming there isn't any crazy variability to where like there are winless teams on the very bottom that are just feeding off victories. In the event in which you could end up shipping a quarterback and a wide receiver in the form of maybe Boutte, who's, again, very much so touchdown dependent as of late. He's pretty much reminding me of this year's Rashad Bateman. If you can ship a quarterback and that in order to get some wide receiver depth in return, I think that's certainly an advantage and approach. But again, you do have upcoming bye weeks. So in your position, because you have a quarterback bye ahead, all this kind of jazz, you probably are better off holding and then trading after the quarterback bye week has commenced. Unless you get some undeniable value in return right now. H13 says, been in trade talks based on spending Montgomery, Kyron, and McBride for Abuka and Jacobs. Okay. Says, I have Pitts at tight end, would for sure lose depth at running back, so I don't know. Genuinely, I would make the trade. Considering what I know from your team based on the context of what you have here, I know you lose depth at RB, but I think Jacobs is so far ahead of Kyron, and Montgomery is such a tough start every single week because he has to guarantee a touchdown. I know losing depth in that form is tough, but like when we look at rest of the season with a 6-2 record, having Herbo, Saquon, Jacobs, alongside of Rashee Rice, Ibuka, is such a viable starting lineup that yes, even though you have Pitts at tight end, I think that's incredible to where, yeah, I'm willing to sell the McBride value to have the rest of my roster look as such. Obviously, in terms of losing depth in a double flex format, it's not ideal. But once the playoffs come around, Evans will be back. Downs is still viable. Quentin Johnston could end up waking up, hopefully. Rachaad White could be a contributing factor. Even if, Bucky Irving's back, they could end up giving him some run in order to keep Bucky healthy. I don't mind it. Again, it's also a question of like, what are we doing via waivers? Can we make some moves there? Can we make some trades right now? Are players such as Trey Benson out there somehow, some way available? Can you make a move? Because again, even though your depth is not great at the moment after a trade of that capacity, theoretically speaking, in due time, it could take 1 week, another player blows out their ankle, and then you've got another RB that's a starter. Like it's just, you never know. Daniel Barnes, type in your question when you get a chance. Thank you. Andrew, what's up, my man? Just questions in the chat. We're in a 12-team full PPR. I lost Scat. Should I search for an RB2? Quarterbacks are Dart and Darnold. My running backs are Etienne, Henderson, Marks, Aaron Jones, and Tootin. Yeah, you right now can survive with Etienne and Marks. I think both of them are simply... I think Etienne, rest of the way, based on his upcoming schedule from weeks 9 through 15, is probably going to be a top 12 running back throughout at least that span of time. Marks is going to continue to be of incredible value to you, to where he's your RB2. And yes, you lose Scat to where it's relatively devastating, but if you have the opportunity to go pick up Tyrone Tracy, you can recover. In the event in which that is not an available option because somebody picked them up last week because of the Bipocalypse, then still I think Etienne and Marks can survive, to which at that point I would look to try to go make a trade with a team to which you can buy low on a running back candidate in the form of a Quinshon Judkins, maybe because he is on a bye week or dealing with an injury. In the event in which that's not a possibility, I would try to go buy low on a Jaylen Warren. If that's not a possibility, genuinely at this point, I don't think Kamara's ever been this low in terms of floor. You can probably get him for pennies on the dollar. Those are possibilities of which you can maybe go ahead and go after an RB2 of that caliber. Other players that theoretically could be ventured to go and maybe get on roster. Yeah, I think those are, Ramondre could be a buy low at the moment. And on top of the fact you have Hendo, but at this point, maybe you just keep it and just hope that Hendo wins the job outright. Wide receivers are Pickens, Nico, and London, Gadsden, and Kittle. Yeah, so basically at this point, we got to trade one of these two tight ends to find some value there. And I think you could probably end up, somebody asked me earlier, like, who do I trade Tyler Warren and Kittle for? I'm looking for an RB2. And that was my primary thing. I said, go after Etienne, go after Jaylen Warren, go after Quinshon Judkins. Those are all players that I believe to be RB2s and I think are comparable value, to which, again, I'd say that's probably what your adventure should be going forward here. Daniel Barnes, getting back to your question. When you get a chance, type it in. Thank you. All right, let's get back to the live chat, see what we have here. Is Matthew Golden worth keeping on my bench anymore? I don't think so. Look at it this way. In the event in which Christian Watson continues to get more exposure to opportunity and Jaden Reed comes back, where does Matthew Golden fit into the hierarchy of targets within the offense? When Kraft is number 1, Dobbs is 2, and then at any given week, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Josh Jacobs, Matthew Golden, too many mouths to feed. What's up, Anonymous? How's it going, brother? Rav80, says, who do I start in my flex? Pittman, Dobbs, Jennings, Shepard, Franklin, Myers, PPR, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. I think it's relatively simple. I think you know who to start. Sterling Shepard's not playing this week, so I don't understand what that's for. Pittman has to play. If Pearsall's out again, you just roll Jennings, and you probably just go Troy Franklin there. I guess you could theoretically throw Dobbs into the mix this week, because they do take on the Carolina Panthers, but it's a relatively zone-heavy approach, so I'd have to go ahead and do a little bit more research on it, but that would probably be the 3. Actually, it's probably Pittman, Dobbs, and Franklin, and we just leave Jennings on the bench. Depending on whether or not Purdy's out there, I think is very much so vital to know before I can make an indication as to whether I'm rolling with him. What running back should I target if I pair Kyren and Sutton in a trade, PPR? If you were going to send Kyren and Sutton in a trade, I would like to hope, that I can possibly get a running back. Look at where I have Kyren, okay? Kyren should be in that range, and so should pretty much Cortland Sutton. What I mean that range is that they should be top 15 running backs and wide receivers rest of the season. So if I'm sending a top 15 running back and wide receiver, and I'm not able to get a top potential 7 running back in return, if I can't get Jacobs, Cook, Henry, Achane, Bijan, if I can't get somebody like that in return, then I don't think it's worth it. I better get an S or an A tier player if I'm sending 2 top 15s. Like, genuinely. Now, I understand that Kyron Williams has not played up to the potential of a top 15 player, to which it may discount the potential of getting a player like him, or like, let's say, for example, like Cook, Jacobs. But even then, like, at that point, okay, well, I can get Javonte at least, but do I want Javonte that badly? I think I'd rather just keep at that point, Should I drop Pollard? I have Charbonnet, Marks, Dowdle, Warren, and yeah, I mean, look, Pollard's never going to start for you. Unless he gets traded, he never starts for you. You can hold him for another week and hope he gets moved via the trade deadline, but I don't think it's worth it. I don't think you need to hold it if you're going to be able to pick up something that's going to at least help. Stoney, what's up, my man? Stoney says, I lost Scat. I'm last on the waivers. And I need to start 3 running backs. I have Henry, Dowdle, Jones, and Spears. Okay. Should I try to still get? Yeah, I mean, absolutely try getting him still. Absolutely. I mean, you're last on the waivers, sure, but if you don't get him, you don't get him. You're still going to move up in terms of priority. As long as you don't make a pickup, you're going to move up in the list. Henry's an auto start, Dowdle's an auto start, and between Spears and Jones, I would probably just rather play Jones at the moment. I could justify it in a full PPR to go in the direction of Spears, but considering Tony Pollard's still there, still active, still getting touches, and Spears' primary kind of value this most recent week was breaking out a 30-yard rushing touchdown in garbage time. These are the 3 that I would prefer to play as of right now. Thanks, man. Scott, what's up, my man? Says non-PPR. Oh, actually, let me just... Sorry about that. I left it on screen here for a little bit too long. Non-PPR, add Spears, Ridley, Watson, Fannin, or New England's defense. Well, I think there's a couple factors here. New England's defense is something that, at least in my mind, I'd like to have on roster until their bye week. They've got a couple considerable matchups here where it could be shootouts, but like Atlanta this week, then they get Tampa Bay, who has not been playing well as of late offensively, then they get the Jets, the Bengals, then the New York Giants. Like, those are all matchups that I would love to roll with them until their bye week. So the New England Patriots defense on roster should have been on roster for the last 3 weeks as they took on New Orleans, Tennessee, and Cleveland. So I don't know how they're still available, but if you can, that's a great potential pickup and play. As for the available rest of these players, I think it just becomes a priority of like, what do you need? Do you need a tight end? Do you need a receiver? Do you need a running back? And based on what that necessity is because of current situation of starting or upcoming bye weeks, I think that'll insight you as to which direction that you need to go in. Daniel Barnes, what's up, my man? Did you end up sending in a follow-up? Just type in the live chat, brother. You don't have to keep sending in supers. Just type in the live chat. You're good to go there. Thank you. Roy Shaver says in a half PPR, 6 point per passing touchdown. I need 2. Tyler Warren, Kraft, Gadsden, or Wando Robinson. Sheesh. Okay. Looking at the current players that you have, I have to play Tucker Kraft because the matchup in itself this week against Carolina, advantageous. That's a given. Then we have the Colts taking on... That's a very interesting one. It's going to be a tricky game here because I think to myself, okay, well, if the Indianapolis Colts against Pittsburgh, which is an incredibly advantageous matchup, is going to lead to success, do I really leave the potential of Gadsden on my bench? Yeah, I think I would. I'd play Kraft and I'd play Warren, and that's how I'd go about it this week. I have to. Thank you. I'm 7th on waiver priority. Should I pick up Tracy, Booty, or Marvin Harrison? Tracy should be number 1. As for number 2 of those available, I'd probably go Marvin Harrison. I understand that their schedule is pretty... I think as of the upcoming weeks here, it's relatively advantageous. You get Dallas this week, which is the number 1 wide receiver matchup. You get Seattle, which last time against them, he had 6 catches, 66, and a touchdown. Then you get San Francisco, who last time against them, he dropped a touchdown. Could have easily had over 150 yards in a tutty in that game if it wasn't for 2 drop passes. Then you get Jacksonville, which should be a matchup in which they're in a negative game script throwing for majority of the time. Then you get Tampa Bay, then you get the LA Rams. Like I feel like easily it's Tyrone Tracy number 1 and Marvin Harrison 2. Easily. Dre Play says, I'm hurting at running back. Again, getting worried about Bucky. May not return post-bye. Wide receivers are JSN. I feel like if he wasn't going to return post-bye, they would have put him on the IR already. But he's dealing with 2 injuries. That's primarily the issue. So let's see what you have to say. It says, looking to move Ibuka for a running back and a half PPR. What level of running back should I target? Henry, Javonte, Kyron? Yeah, in the event in which, look, here's the reality of the situation. You should shoot for the moon. So you should shoot for Derrick Henry. And if you can't get him, fall to Javonte Williams. And that's how you should run about it. Those are the 2 that I'm more than happy going after in this circumstance. Thanks, man. Based on the same team I mentioned, would you pick up Christian Watson or over Coleman? I probably would, because I just don't trust Keon Coleman, because quite frankly, neither does Josh Allen. Eon says Hunt or Tracy. I'd rather have Tracy. That should be your priority number 1. Should I trade Jamar for Roma Dunze, Jake Ferguson, and Chase Brown? I lost Scat, and now I have no RB depth. And yes, I would make this trade. I would. I think if Jake Ferguson becomes your starting tight end, you get Roma Dunze, which is an incredible wide receiver. You get Chase Brown, which rest of season, especially for the upcoming 6 games here, has an incredible strength of schedule outside of the bye week. I think this is worthwhile trade in my mind. Absolutely. Roy Shaver, what's up, my man? Roy says, and I have, okay, yeah, so we already answered that. Says one more question in the chat. Oh, yeah, I missed this one. My bad. Says Herbert or May. If we're talking about specifically starting this week, I think there is an argument to be made to where both are very, okay, so here's my issue. When you play against Tennessee, there's the possibility in which you don't actualize like maximum value because you're running the ball late because Tennessee can't score. That's my primary fear. But this all being said, I think I would still prefer to play Herbert this week. So I go Herbert 1, I go Drake May 2. Drop Algier or Monungai for Tracy, Hunt, and Spears. I would drop Monungai for Tracy. And if in the case in which you don't have Bijan, which I think if you don't have Bijan, then I'd probably drop Algier for Hunt just in case Pacheco misses time and you can start Hunt and Tracy weekly for the next couple weeks here. Obviously, Tracy for rest of the season. So Tracy for Monungai, and then maybe drop Algier for Hunt if you don't have Bijan. Drop Jennings for Franklin? I would. Because once Pearsall comes back, Jennings is cooked. And especially once Ayuk comes back, Jennings is cooked. Because the hierarchy of target opportunity is going to go Kittle, Pearsall, McCaffrey, Ayuk. Especially early on when Ayuk is back. It says, boys, are we trading Warren and Harvey for King Henry? Immediately. I would immediately. Colin says, thoughts on Nico Collins rest of the season? Should I look to trade, or do I think he'll turn it around in the second half of the season? Looking at their upcoming schedule for rest of season, the Houston Texans have a middle of the pack matchup, which again, it's not too, it's not too far away. Like this week, I think Patrick Surtain is going to miss. And if that's going to be the case, Nico Collins has himself a really good opportunity against Denver. Then he takes on Jacksonville, in which he has a pretty storied success rate against them. Then Tennessee, which is advantageous. Buffalo, negative script. Indianapolis, second best matchup. Like their upcoming schedule is either incredibly competitive games or incredibly advantageous matchups, to which he should be highly implicated. I'd like to hold for him. In fact, I'd like to trade for him if I have the opportunity to do so. Maddie says, pick order for waivers. Franklin, Pearsall, Watson, full PPR. Thank you, Andrew. I mean, look, as of right now, it depends on a couple of factors. Do you need these players to start this week? If the answer is yes to that, then I'd pick up Franklin first. Then I'd go Watson second and Pearsall third. But if you're asking me, Andrew, I need rest of season, I'd go Pearsall 1, Franklin 2, Watson 3. Should I trade Javonte Williams for Justin Jefferson in a standard scoring league? He's sitting on my bench. Yeah, in the event in which you've got superior running backs across the board and you can upgrade to the form of Justin Jefferson, the Minnesota Vikings have the easiest strength of schedule at wide receiver rest of the way. So yes, I would like to have Justin Jefferson there. Okay, we took care of that. Frenzy, who says full PPR, double flex format. I'm currently running with Puka Nacua as my receiver. Also, Flowers, Devontae Adams, Pearsall. Okay, running backs are that. Do I keep Adams or trade wide receiver for an RB? Thoughts? I mean, honestly, I think you're fine keeping them both. That offense is so high powered that it's just let it rip. Let Stafford carry you to the promised land. Take Watson over Franklin. I have Dobbs already. If you have Dobbs already, then just go for Franklin. Thanks, man. All right. Slowly but surely catching up. Appreciate y'all. Let me go ahead and see if I do that, does it make a difference? It does. Okay, cool. Quick reminder, we've been here for about an hour and 8 minutes. I hope you guys are enjoying today's live stream. Of course, trying to kind of set you guys up for success in regards to your upcoming waiver wire positioning, bids, etc. Again, I'll be back tomorrow. Of course, not only live streaming on the channel, but additionally, just providing my top 40 wide receiver rankings. So keep an eye out for that. Again, between now and this upcoming Thursday, and before I post those Patreon rankings, again, if you guys want my rankings every Thursday and Sunday, you can find it via Patreon. Of course, ask me individualized questions. There's going to be a lot of information that needs to be kind of sifted through in terms of injury reports going into this upcoming Wednesday practice, which will give us a little bit of an indication as to a lot of the players in which direction we're going towards this week. But still a lot of time between now and then, just hoping that, again, I know many of you are asking in regards to, hey, who do I play, for the upcoming, week 9 matchup. There's a lot of time between now and Sunday. So a lot can change. Just keep that in mind, okay? All right, so let's see here. Let's get back to the live chat. Matthew says, drop Fields for Flacco. Should I keep Flacco or pick Fields back up? Other quarterback is Dart. I'd probably, at this point, here's the thing. When I look at the Jets' upcoming schedule here, Cleveland, New England, Baltimore, Atlanta. I don't want to do it. I'd rather just have Flacco. Genuinely, I feel like Flacco's the better play. Kyle says Etienne and Diggs for King Henry. My team is Hall and Etienne, Montgomery, Rice, Adunze, Diggs. I wouldn't. I'd keep what you have. I think you need Diggs and Etienne rest of the season. Noah says trade Nico for Wilson. Did I make a mistake? I don't think so. I think Garrett Wilson's going to be solid rest of the season. Joel says, should I drop Pearsall and pick up Joe Burrow for a playoff stash? My starting quarterback is Caleb and Stafford. I mean, ultimately, even if Burrow was to come back, it would have to be like week 15, 16, to which at that point, am I going to throw him out there in his first week back, or am I going to play Stafford? I think I'd rather just play Stafford at that point, to which I'd rather just hold on to Pearsall right now, because I want to ensure that I'm going to make the playoffs with the force of Pearsall potentially helping me get there before I'm stashing Burrow away and to begin with. Pedigree says, would you drop either Diggs or Keenan Allen to pick up Hunter? Not sure of Hunter's usage for rest of way. As of right now, I'd probably keep these two. I agree. The unknown commodity of Hunter and how much usage he's going to get and overall opportunity share is just kind of tough to predict at the moment. So I'd keep these two studs. PPR, Dart or Purdy, I'd rather just go with Dart because of the, 6 point per passing touchdown does make it a little bit different. But even then, I think the rushing upside leans me towards Purdy there. Pick one for the flex. I'd go with Vidal. 10 times out of 10 there. Nathan Gutierrez says, hey, Andrew just got offered Kroski and Dobbs for Keenan Allen. I mean, I guess you theoretically could make the trade. Kroski could be of value in the future, but just certainly is not going to be the case this week. If I was you, I would probably try to go and trade for Kroski after this week because he's probably going to get absolutely waxed against the Seattle Seahawks. They probably allow less than whatever his under is in terms of rushing yards. I'm probably going for it. Andrew says, full PPR, start 2 in the flex. We have the following options. So I lost Scadaboo. Should I change my team up? I mean, looking at your team, Josh Allen, Bijan, Monungai, CeeDee Lamb, and Njigba. Well, Njigba is not going to play this week. Ferguson, Terry, and Kyle Pitts. So yeah, we need to find another wide receiver to start this week. That's pretty much it. Hector says, Andrew, I'm kind of stuck on these. Drop Worthy to pick up Myers, wide receiver, or Worthy, Downs, London, Olave, Pearsall, McLaurin. Full PPR 10-team league. Thanks, brother. I think unless Myers gets traded to a really advantageous position, I'd rather have Worthy on roster because of the offense he's associated with. The fact of the matter is, like, Jacoby Myers would have to be traded to an offense that is super desperate for a wide receiver, and he would need to learn that offense incredibly quickly and need to get immediate target opportunity to where I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to be an ancillary kind of depth piece for an organization pushing for the playoffs. I don't think he's going to be super valuable to where I would be picking him up in order to drop Worthy. Would you drop Jennings for Christian Watson? I would. That's fine by me. Would you drop Mason for Tracy? Yes, I would. Hector, what's up, my man? How's it going? Says, hey, Andrew, kind of stuck. Oh, yeah, so we already answered this. Beautiful. Thank you again. So in this circumstance, I'd keep Worthy. I'd keep Downs. I'd keep London, Olave, Pearsall, McLaurin. I don't need Myers on my team. So after this week, yes, after this week, because I think the value of Kroski Merritt is only going to dip as we proceed. And once it dips, I think that point makes it so where your investment to trade for him isn't as expensive. Pick one for the flex: Pittman, Quentin Johnson, Ricky Pearsall. It's Pittman. You know it's Pittman. I mean, he's playing too well as of this current moment. I think there's just too much value to be had in that circumstance, which again, I think leads us to the promised land of potential production there. All right, guys. So I see that the chat is kind of slowing down. I see that you guys are obviously in here, but I think that's pretty much where we're going to call it. I do appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel as you guys do with not only your viewership, clicking the like button, sending in super chats, supporting via, of course, the Betr sign up here. Of course, signing up via Patreon and supporting me there. I do appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel today. I'm going to go ahead. This is one of these rarer days that I want to end the stream a little bit early, primarily because my Dodgers are playing and I want to go, catch that game. Obviously, I caught all 18 innings last night, stayed up until the crack of dawn, but I'm going to go ahead and answer a couple more questions and we're going to head out here, okay? All right. Could the Raiders defense be viable this week versus T-Law? I doubt it. Lucas says, in the flex, should I start Bam Knight, Charbonnet, or Diggs? As of right now, I think Bam Knight would theoretically be the best play under the assumption that Trey Benson is out. If he is not, then at that point, I probably position myself to either play Sharps half or Diggs in a full PPR. Jay McLaughlin says, better running back pickup to stash in a standard, Henderson or Bigsby? I would rather pick up Henderson because at least I can have more than just a couple weeks of value there. Lucas says, for the flex, should I start Bam Knight? Okay, I already took care of that one. Roy Powell says, trade Ladd, Judkins, and Marks for ETN, Collins, or Warren. Ladd, Judkins, Mark, excuse me, for ETN, Collins, and Warren. So I prefer Collins over Ladd, or I think at very least they have equal value. I think so does Judkins and ETN. So it's purely a matter of like, if Tyler Warren is a huge upgrade at tight end and you don't need the running back depth in the form of Marks, I make that trade. I'd rather have the ETN side there. Dior says, I hit the Discord for my question. D, it depends on, let's see here, brother. You hit the Discord? What does that mean? Like, did you put it in the Discord? I would say just send me a straight DM. And then I can answer it after the stream. How much fab for Tyron Tracy? Empty the clip. I gave this specific example earlier. If you have 70 fab left out of 100, and the team that you expect to go after him is going to utilize 65 fab, then you should use 66. That you should try to use as much as you should try to guarantee that you get him. That's how valuable he is. Looks like we're getting 7-game World Series. Is it really? Are we getting absolutely mopped right now? Please don't tell me that's the case. No, okay, no, we're fine. It's only 3-1. We're good. I'm about to go watch, and the tides are going to turn. Watch, guys. Short-term thoughts on Hunt. Again, if he is going to start for like 2-3 weeks here, he's a top 24 player every single one of those games because of his rushing touchdown upside. Gerardo sends in a super chat with the final question of this evening. Thank you, Gerardo. I appreciate it. It says, hey, man, Baker's on a bye. I'm not playing well. Should I get Stafford, Goff, Murray, Dart, or Darnold? Well, of these available options, based on the upcoming matchups ahead here, let me see where I would... Okay, looking at their schedule here this week, I think the New Orleans Saints matchup for Stafford just kind of makes him the play because I'd have a hard time thinking he doesn't light them up for 3 touchdowns. But the rushing touchdown upside of Jackson Dart, along with the negative script that is most likely going to be entailed, leans me in his direction. So I probably go Dart number 1, Stafford number 2, Kyler Murray number 3, Goff 4, Darnold 5. Thank you. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all. We're going to go ahead, close it out here. I'm going to go ahead and cue the double helix. Much love. I will see you guys tomorrow in regards to wide receiver rankings and, of course, streaming tomorrow night. Have a great rest of your night. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace. Okay, looking at a couple of the questions that came in while I was hitting the outro here, we had Mango who said, whom should I drop for Gadsden? Justin Fields would be your drop because you want to keep the handcuff there for Jacobs just in case. ETN never gets dropped. Montgomery never gets dropped. Neither does Jordan Addison. Fields is your drop there. Somebody asked, is Chuba droppable? I wouldn't say so yet. Andrew, Caleb, or Stafford? I'd rather have Stafford. If Pearsall is on the waivers, is he top pickup, assuming I won't be able to get Tracy? Yes. In the event in which you can't get Tracy, he is as of right now, assuming healthy, the top pickup. Zay Flowers or Hunter Henry for George Kittle, Troy Franklin. I'd rather have the George Kittle side, genuinely. I think there's a little bit more value to be had there because I don't really trust Hunter Henry and the value that he presents. All right, guys. Appreciate it. Have a great night. Peace.